Hey guys, welcome to Juicy Tea, where I read out the best stories on Reddit, so you don't have to. The funny, shocking, and satisfyingly juicy. Today we're looking at the worst partners from across Reddit, where a girl gets sweet revenge on her jerk of a boyfriend. My boyfriend asks for BJs multiple times a day. How can I/we get past how this is making me feel? Posted by Embarrassed916. Me and my boyfriend are both 27 years old. We've been dating for 4 years, and he asks for BJs every single day. Is this normal? I absolutely adore my boyfriend, and he's such an incredible partner in so many ways. We're best friends and have built so many amazing things together. When I was studying and he was working full-time, I didn't mind him asking so much of me because he was supporting me financially, and I had much more free time. But I now work a very demanding full-time job, and every day, without fail, he asks for a BJ, even after I've cooked and cleaned, etc. I still do 100% of the housework, but I don't mind. I usually come home from work exhausted, and it's not that I don't want to sleep with him, but I need intimacy to get me in the mood. I feel like every time he asks for a BJ, with no other physical contact, it turns me off. And if I don't immediately give him one, he'll get upset as he then doesn't feel loved, which I understand, and it's the last thing I want. One of the only arguments we ever have is the reoccurring one about how he doesn't feel loved because I'm not jumping his bones and blowing him at every opportunity, and how I don't feel loved because he's not kissing and cuddling me or doing anything to make me feel like he really wants me. It feels like I'm just a BJ machine to him. But I feel guilty even saying that. In the past, he's admitted that he tends to withhold affection from me because he doesn't feel like I've been doing enough for him. But the more BJs he asks for, the less into it I am. How do we find a balance and work towards fixing this before it completely destroys my libido? You feel like a BJ machine, cause that's exactly how he's treating you. It really sounds like this guy thinks that because he supported her financially through her study, he now owns her, specifically her mouth. So she's contributing financially, does 100% of the housework, and is expected to drop to her knees and pleasure him whenever he snaps his fingers. But to quote OP, he doesn't feel like I've been doing enough for him. Girl, come on! What blows my mind is she's not even objecting to the unbalanced work division. Cause she thinks it's fair given his past financial support. All she's asking for is some affection. Literally just cuddles and kisses. She's not even asking him to do more foreplay. She just doesn't want to be a fleshlight that pays the bills and cleans the house. Is he seriously expecting her to be his bangmaid for life? Cause he covered the bills while she studied? Oh god, it gets worse. Down in the comments, someone asked if OP was really okay with him asking for BJs every day, back when he was paying for all the bills. And she says, he didn't actually pay 100% of the bills, just the stuff that I couldn't afford week to week if I had a quiet work week. Girl, you must be the lowest paid hooker in all of history. Not trying to insult you, but that's literally how he's treating you. Remember, he's complaining about having to give you a kiss or a cuddle before getting a BJ. What the F? I really hope this is just a rage bait. I helped someone get revenge on their gold-digging boyfriend. Posted by Nomasani5523. So, a few years ago, I worked at the front desk of a large luxury hotel. The hotel I worked at was located really close to the downtown area, so we got a large number of young, very wealthy business people who love to party. I usually worked the second and third shifts, which meant I got to see a ton of drunken hookups, breakups, cheating, hookers and more. This particular one though, this one I will never forget. I was working at the desk when a group of young, well-dressed men came walking in. They'd clearly all been drinking, but weren't so drunk that they couldn't walk straight or hold a conversation. So one of them comes up to me and tells me that while he and his friends were at a bar, a woman was hitting on him, and even though he told her no multiple times, she wouldn't stop. He and his friends left, and it wasn't until they got into an Uber that he realised that he didn't have his room key anymore. He thinks she took it, and he's concerned that she may come up to his room. He asks that I deactivate his keys, and if she does come up to the hotel, to not let her in. As he was telling me all of this, it just didn't sit right with me. He and his friends were all grinning about it and snickering to one another. Then he gave a clear description of her, without being asked. Told me her height, body shape, hair colour and style, and the kind of dress she was wearing, all while saying it in a mocking tone. Now, this could have easily been because he thought the whole thing was ridiculous, or he was too drunk to take it seriously, but it just didn't sound right to me. Either way, I did as I was trained to do in that situation. I pulled up his reservation, deactivated the keys as requested, made him a new set, and even offered to move him to a new room if that would make him feel more comfortable. He and his buddies laughed a little at that, but he declined, took the keys, and off they went to their room. About an hour or so later, the woman he described showed up. Now, by this point, my relief for the night had also shown up and was sitting at the front desk while I was in the back office counting down my cash drawer. I hadn't had a chance to tell him about the woman. Just as I'm walking out of the back office with my bag and about to leave, I see my coworker buzz the doors open and the woman comes rushing in. She cuts through the lobby and runs down the hall to the elevators. She was barefoot, holding her heels in her hand, and knew exactly where she was going. I rushed up to him and told him what the man from earlier had told me about her. My coworker looked at me confused. He then pointed to the screen that had the reservation pulled up and told me that when the woman arrived, she went to use the room keys and they didn't work, so he'd asked for a room number and last name. She gave both and her name is on the reservation. I looked at the reservation and down in the notes, a woman's name was indeed listed. I was confused and thought maybe she wasn't the same woman he was talking about. But to be on the safe side, I called him in his room and told him about the situation and that we'd allowed a woman, fitting the description he'd given, to enter the building because she'd confirmed that her name was on the room. He laughed and said he forgot her name was on the room and asked me to remove it. I was super confused now, and to make sure, I asked, "Sir, just to be clear, the woman you met at the bar tonight was with you at check-in hours ago and was allowed keys then, but now she is not?" Him, laughing to all his friends in the room. "Oh, guys, I confused the poor girl." Gets back on the phone with me. "Yes, sweetheart, she's banned from the room. Don't worry about the other details, just take her name off." Me. "I see. Then, if she isn't going to be on the room anymore, would you like us to call the police and have her removed from the property?" Him. "Whoa, that's going a bit far there. Don't worry, she'll get the hint soon enough." We ended the call there, and I got really suspicious of this. I told my coworker to not do anything, and that I was going to stick around for a bit to see if anything happened. A short time later, the woman came off the elevator, pouring tears, sobbing while on the phone with someone. She sat down in our lobby, and my coworker and I tried to look busy while eavesdropping hard on her phone call. She was sobbing on the phone to her mum and sister. From what she told them, she was invited to spend the week with her boyfriend, meeting all of his old college buddies. This was the first night, and they'd all met up for dinner and drinks. After a bit, she went to the restroom, and when she came back, she caught her boyfriend hitting on another woman. Apparently his friends had all bet that he wouldn't. When she confronted him, pissed off, he called her a bunch of names and humiliated her in front of his friends and the entire bar. All his friends had joined in on mocking her, and he threw in her face that she was nothing without him and dumped her right there. He and his friends then took an Uber back and left her stranded at the bar with no money and no way to get back. She had had to use her phone's GPS and walk back to the hotel from the bar, barefoot because she'd been wearing heels and the hotel was 2 miles away. She was asking her mum and sister for help as he wouldn't let her back into the room to get her luggage or her wallet. My heart broke. I felt horrible. I'd helped this guy treat this poor woman like dirt, and now he and all his friends were up there laughing at her while she was sitting in our lobby, sobbing and with nothing. I grabbed a bottle of water and brought it to her. I told her that I couldn't help but overhear the conversation and was very sorry for her situation and asked if she'd like us to help. I informed her that if he was keeping her from getting her things, we could call the police and have them force him to hand them over, so she could leave if she wanted to. Or if she wanted to let her mum or sister pay for a room, we'd be happy to give her a very low rate for a room, far away from him. She thanked me, took the water, and tried to calm down. She talked to me about what was happening and what her options were. Eventually, she decided to stay in the hotel for the night and figure out the rest tomorrow. When we got to the desk, she asked me to try and run her credit card to see if there was enough on it for another room. I asked her what she meant by another room. And then she tells me it was actually her who was paying for the room that her cheating ex was in. That his name is on the room because he booked it, but it was her card paying for everything. This intrigued me. I asked why she was paying for the room if it was in his name. Then she told me she's the one with the job, not him. That he hasn't been able to find a job in his field since graduating from college and had essentially been living off his parents' money. But just after they started dating, his parents cut him off, so he's been living off of her money. That's why she was so upset and confused by how he's been acting all night. He was so sweet back home, but since he'd met up with his friends, he'd done a full 180 and hadn't been the same guy the entire time. I wanted to tell her that it was obvious he was just using her for the money, and that he would probably blame his friends for all of this and try to get back with her later on. But I doubted she'd have listened to me, or wanted a complete stranger butting in on her personal life like that. So instead, I offered up a piece of sweet revenge. I informed her that, considering she's the one paying for the room, if she could confirm that it's her card on file with some sort of photo ID, then she could, if she wanted to, kick him out of the room and keep it all to herself. And considering how poorly her night has been, if she was indeed able to prove that she's the one paying for the room, then I'd be more than happy to provide her with the biggest luxury upgrade we could offer. Largest suite we had, full hotel amenity access. I even had my coworker fish out a bowl of champagne and some fresh strawberries to have sent up to her room, all free of charge. She was taken aback by the offer and seemed tempted, but looked like she was about to say no. So I quickly added that since she'd be upgrading her room, we'd have to move her things from her current room into a new room. That meant that the room she was currently listed in would need to be vacated immediately. And if anyone tried to remain in the room afterwards, they'd have to pay for the room, or be escorted off the property. She thought about it, then pulled up her card's banking app and showed me the screen. It had a photo of her, her full name, the card's full number, and the hold from our hotel for the room. She asked if that worked. It was good enough for me. I quickly upgraded her, moved everything across in the system, and before I could say a word to my coworker, he was already grabbing a set of master keys, a bell cart, and asking what her luggage looked like. He said he'd go get it for her, so she wouldn't have to deal with her ex again. She smiled and told him which ones were hers and that she hadn't unpacked yet. My coworker ran down to the elevators to get her things, while I made her a new set of keys and sent her off to a new room. Once she got into the elevator, my phone at the desk started to ring. It was her ex-boyfriend, and he was very angry that my coworker had just entered the room and was taking her things. I calmly explained that I can't give out the private information of any of our guests, and if he'd like to remain in the room, he will need to pay for it, as there's no longer a method of payment on his room. He blew up. He was making a ton of demands, and at the same time, yelling at my coworker to stop what he's doing. But it was obvious from the way he was yelling at him that my coworker wasn't listening. I could even hear the guy's friends telling him to chill out and just pay for the room. I then told him I'd give him a courtesy 10 minutes to make a decision, at which point, if he doesn't have payment ready, then he must vacate the building, or we'll be forced to call the authorities and have him evicted. He continued to yell at me. He screamed, swore, and threatened for a solid minute before taking a breath. I then told him that he now has 9 minutes remaining and asked if he'd made a decision yet. He hung up on me. 9 minutes later, I called the room and he didn't answer. I called again, no answer. I called a third time. He picked up, then immediately hung up. At this point, I called the police and told them what's going on. The police arrived and we went up to the room together. When the ex-boyfriend and his friends saw the cops, they went white. The cops explained that they were being evicted. The ex-boyfriend tried talking to me, but the cops stopped him and told him to only talk to them. I'd mentioned his attitude on the phone. By now, the ex-boyfriend's friends were all offering to pay for the room, and the cops looked at me and asked if that would be acceptable. I smiled very sweetly and said, no. The cops nodded and began rushing all the guys to grab their things and leave the room. The ex-boyfriend was the last one out of the door, carrying his 2 bags and complaining that he wasn't even given a luggage cart and had to carry his own things. His friends all looked pissed at him. When I got back to the lobby, my coworker told me how the woman is all settled in her new room and loves it, although she did say no to the champagne. She just wants to sleep. I didn't get to see her before she left town the next day, but her ex-boyfriend tried calling our hotel to complain a number of times, and even tried to leave some bad reviews of us online, lying through all of it. I hope she doesn't ever have to deal with him again. If you liked this video, please let me know, and subscribe for more juicy tea.